As of the recording of this video, I still don't even have my shipping notice for my Eternia yet. And I'm watching everybody get their Eternias online and getting their shipping notices, and I'm just experiencing major FOMO. but I did get King Grayskull. Yes, King Grayskull randomly showed up, no shipping notice whatsoever. I assume it's because just the shipping notice will be attached to the playset itself. But this was the bonus figure, the exclusive figure for all the early bird backers, I guess backers is the right word, on the crowd fund for the Eternia playset. So if you were in that first batch and you ordered the Eternia, you got the King Grayskull figure added on for free. And as a surprise to all of us, it's shipping separate from the Eternia playset. So this just showed up, and I figure since I have no idea yet when I'm going to get my Eternia, why don't I just go ahead and do a video about the King Grayskull, and then when Eternia gets here, we'll just make it all about Eternia. It's probably going to be a very long video when that happens. So, King Grayskull is coming in a brown mailer box, similar to a lot of the Mattel Creations exclusive figures, inside of a regular shipping box, no other packing material. Luckily, mine came okay. But you can see the outer part of the shipper box there has got some cool designs, King Grayskull on the back of it there. But let's go ahead and open this up. Let's do an unboxing right here so that we can take a closer look at the actual packaging for King Grayskull. Now, I've got a lot I want to talk about with this packaging because I was honestly kind of surprised that they went with the Powers of Grayskull design. If you are not familiar, Powers of Grayskull was going to be the new toy line that continued after the Vintage Masters of the Universe line ended in '87. So it was going to shift to Powers of Grayskull. Our main character was going to be Hero, not King Grayskull, which is why this is kind of funny because King Grayskull was not associated with Powers of Grayskull in the original line. He was originally created for the 2002 animated series as sort of a replacement for Hero. And now they kind of both coexist as characters within the world, but it's just really interesting to see him on this backer card, almost as if he's replacing Hero, just like he did in the 2002 toy line. But what's really cool about this is this card back is inspired by the actual canceled card back, because we've seen images of what the card back was going to look like for the toy line, and it looked a lot like this. Now, I also want to bring in these awesome Eldor and Hero figures that Super 7 did a few years back, which also utilized that Powers of Grayskull card back. Now, the artwork does appear to be a little bit different, like the shape of the skull in the back seems to be a little different. I believe that they were able to use the actual designs on the Super 7 one. Maybe I'm wrong. This is likely a new recreation of that, but it looks really, really good. I think it's awesome seeing that. So that's Eldor, and then of course Hero came on the larger deluxe style package. But there they are. There's Hero and King Grayskull next to each other. I hope we get Hero and Eldor and Origins at some point. It'd be really nice to get those guys in this particular style, and it would give them an excuse maybe to keep using like the Powers of Grayskull packaging. I don't know if they would. If you do Hero though, he's got to be vac metal, Mattel. I'm telling you right now. So I just wanted to show that just because I thought that was a really, really fun little nod that they did here. So what's really cool about this is also collector-friendly packaging. On the backside, we've just got this beautiful artwork of King Grayskull holding up his power sword in front of Eternia Tower from the Eternia playset. And like the other collector-friendly packages, you can slide this card back out. Now look, this will give us a chance to get a better look at the artwork on there, which is really cool. Heroic Ancestor of He-Man. And then you can just easily remove the figure right out of that blister bubble there. Now, he does have some ties, it looks like, so you'll have to cut the ties, but in theory, he'll be easy to put back in here if you want to open them, photograph them, pose them, play with them, and then decide you want to display them back in this Powers of Grayskull packaging. It's very easy to do that. Actually, we've got these little these little plastic liners in the bottom there to keep it stable. And then look at that, we can just slide King Grayskull back in, and you can slide the backer card back on there, which is pretty cool. So, of course, this version of King Grayskull is actually based on the version that we saw in the Netflix Revelation and Revolution series. So it's not the 2002 version of King Grayskull. It'll be interesting to see if there's like an open opportunity for that version of King Grayskull somewhere down the road as well. We've had a few 2000X influences in this line, but not a ton of them. They've mostly been inspired by the vintage toys. And then this is kind of, I think, the first time we're really incorporating something from Revolution in Origins, Revelation. Am I right about that? I think it is. I think this is. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at the figure now that we've taken a look at that really incredibly cool packaging. All right, we've got King Grayskull outside of the packaging. If I bring in the tape measure, you can see the figure stands just shy of 6 inches tall. Of course, he is in that 5.5 scale and should match up with the rest of the figures in the MOTU Origins lineup. Let's put him next to He-Man here. So it does look like he's just utilizing the exact same body type, which is to be expected. So same boots, legs, loincloth piece, torso, arms, even the wrist bracers, all of that just basically looks exactly the same as He-Man's body. But we've got some new parts there. Of course, we got the chest harness there, which is new. We've got this cape. We've got that new head, which does make him stand out quite a bit. Actually, I really like the head sculpt on this. Bringing that in to take a closer look at that, I think that is a really nicely done head sculpt. There's quite a bit of detail in there, and everything on this figure looks real nice and clean, which is something that I really appreciate. All the paint looks really good. I think that the very shiny gold that they used for the belt and the wrist bracers really stands out, and I kind of love that almost like cream white that they used on the fur. I don't know, all of that looks really, really nice together. The new chest harness that he's wearing, the armor there, definitely has a bit of that 2000X influence to it. You can see he's got that sort of like asterisk H symbol that the 2000s version of He-Man had on his chest piece there, so that is pretty cool. And one thing that really stands out on this figure is the fact that they gave him a cloth cape. This is pretty unusual for the MOTU Origins line. Many of the figures that have had capes in this line have been plastic capes, which was a shift from the vintage line, talking about characters like Scareglow and King Randor, who had cloth capes in the vintage line, now have plastic capes in Origins. But here's King Grayskull, who was given the cloth cape treatment. And it's pretty nice. It's the same similar material we've seen from some of the cloth capes from the Masterverse line. It's got this really cool kind of tattered look at the bottom of it here. And then it's got the big fur pelt up at the top. Now, one thing with this fur pelt, the way this works, you can see that they've actually just Velcroed it on around the power harness that he's wearing, around the armor. So when you first pull him out of the package, this thing is pulled like way down on the back. That fur is definitely meant to sit more up on his shoulders. So you're gonna wanna like slide this all up so that it fits and just sits a little bit better on the figure. It should be up a little bit higher. There's like a hole in the back of it there, which is a good space for his ponytail to kind of hang down. Also, I love kind of the braid clasp in the back that's got the H symbol. I think that's pretty cool too. But also underneath this cape, it's worth noting that there is actually a sword holster here. It's a little tricky because with his included sword, you'll have to kind of slide it through that hole in the top and then just make sure that you're putting it through the actual sword holster on his back. It might even kind of pull down on that fur a little bit, but it is possible to place the sword right there and it sticks out of his cape perfectly on his back, goes on the sword holster. I think that is really cool. So articulation is exactly what you would expect from these, exactly the same as the rest of the Origins figures, and should still have all of the same removable parts as before. So you got the ball joint that the head pops right off of. You can pop the arms right out of socket at the shoulders, swivel at the elbow, bend at the elbow, swivel and hinge at the wrist. You can pull the hands out as well. You got a swivel at the torso where he also detaches. Legs go outwards, forwards, backwards, swivel at the knee, bend at the knee, swivel at the boot cut. You can also pop the boot off the figure, and then the ankles move forwards, backwards, and rock side to side. Articulation feels great on this figure, but I think Origins in general always feels really good. They've definitely got this form factor down in this particular line. And that accessory that I just kind of briefly brought in and showed you a second ago is a version of He-Man's Power Sword, but this time around it's done in this translucent blue. So if I bring in that sword that He-Man was holding earlier, you can see it is the same mold as the He-Man sword. It's just in this cool translucent blue. This is cool because we've seen this with, like, in the past, we had like the translucent blue power orb and stuff like that. It's supposed to sort of be like King Grayskull's power transferred to the sword, which then the sword lives on to until the day that another hero arises, kind of a thing. That comes straight out of the 2000s series. So I don't know if that's the exact intent here with the blue power sword, but that's definitely what it feels like to me. And it does make it stand out. It's pretty cool looking. This is all we really get with our King Grayskull, though, so no shield with this particular version or anything else. But all in all, it's a very, very solid action figure. And with that, my friends, it's comparison time. Let's go ahead and stand this new Origins version of King Grayskull alongside the Masterverse counterpart inspired by the Revelation animated series, which is exactly what this new Origins version is pulling from. So looking at them side by side, they have very similar designs there. They are different heads. I know that the heads look very similar, but the Masterverse head is quite a bit smaller. The Origins figures get bigger heads for those Origins 5.5 vintage proportions there, but a lot of similarities. Otherwise, it's kind of like taking that Masterverse version and vintage sizing him, if that's a word, making him more vintage style to fit in with the Masters of the Universe Origins toy line. And there you go, my friends. That is a look at the brand new King Grayskull action figure for the Masters of the Universe Origins toy line. He's a super solid action figure, but he is exclusive to those who bought in on Eternia at the early bird level, which means there are currently no plans to release this figure outside of that. So if you already missed that, if you didn't buy in on Eternia, man, unfortunately, this figure is already selling for insane money on the aftermarket, which I was honestly kind of shocked by. I would imagine that if we get a King Grayskull in the standard toy line, they will do the 2000X version of King Grayskull just to differentiate him from this. But that is me completely spitballing. I have no idea if there are any plans to do any more King Grayskull figures. As it stands right now, the only way to get a King Grayskull in Origins is if you bought into that early bird Eternia set, or if you're willing to buy them on the aftermarket. But I still wanted to open them up, show them off, give you guys a good look at them. So thank you all so very much for watching this video. Stay tuned. The Eternia video is definitely coming. I just don't know when, but when it shows up, man, I'm going to unbox it. We'll put it together. We'll take a look at it. We'll compare it to the vintage one. It's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so very much for watching this video, and until next time.